Right on. There's nothing but colors up here, and I never write with color. Oh, there's a black marker. Yes. I was a little worried I'd have to start my colorful life. I don't want to do that.
You're wearing bright green.
Shut up. Taking away your lab grade. All right. So we've been talking about digital systems. Okay, and this is, by the way, we're still in chapter 7. We've been in chapter 7 for like 3 weeks. There's a lot of stuff to unpack in this chapter. At some point we need to, but before we do that, we have to discuss another fundamental concept that's present in chapter 7. So far, we've discussed binary, foundations of digital systems, we've discussed Boolean algebra. We've discussed logic gates. I mean, we've already covered a lot of ground just in chapter 7. There's a tremendous amount of information that's present in chapter 7. What we're going to be talking about today is memory systems. What? Oh, you can make it better. All right, so what do we mean when we mean, what is a memory system?
System that stores binary bytes.
Or bits, rather. I'm going to use the term bits. Bytes is it's actually an 8-bit word. Okay. Well, what a memory system is in most systems, that system is dependent on current inputs. Okay, for example, a clock cycle might produce a signal that says, let's look at the system now, and now, and now, and now. Okay, so the clock cycle will just signal, and when it signals, it goes and reads all of the current values and uses those to process signal. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it now is to have the systems just simply continuously update. Which means they're operating constantly, and that just as inputs change, the system behavior changes automatically. All right, so this is what we've been dealing with, current inputs only. Now what we have not been dealing with We've not been dealing with a system that depends on previous states of the system. All right? I'm going to use a pretty gruesome example here. Zach, I'm sorry. It's you. Okay? You are currently in class. That is your current state. If you had ever been hit by a car and smeared on a roadway, you couldn't be in class today. The pieces of you could be in class today, but not you. All right? So you really do depend on your previous states. All of you have had to do a great job of surviving just to get to this point, to be in this class and perform the lab we had this morning, which was very tough.
Great lab.
Hard work. You put in the effort. Okay? But all of you depend on your previous states to exist in the state that you currently are. Did you eat breakfast this morning? I forgot. He's got like 2.5 hours of sleep. Bro goes hard. Did you eat breakfast this morning, Zane?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you hungry as a result?
A little bit, yeah.
Dang it. That kind of ruins where I was going. You're less hungry than you would have been.
Yeah.
So your current hunger state depends on whether or not you ate previously.
That's true.
Okay? And you can say that about pretty much everything. Your temperature depends on your temperature like 5 seconds ago. If you were overeating 5 seconds ago, you're probably not fine right now. So a memory system, this is necessary because this is a real system. Okay? And furthermore, for computerized systems, we need to be able to store and transmit binary bits to perform calculations. Okay? Otherwise, you have to have a series of inputs that activate constantly, and that's all your computerized system ever does. So here, memory systems allow us to work with previous states of the system to make some changes. All right, so example. Last class I gave you examples of Boolean algebra statements like you have a lamp light that would turn on if you're sitting in your seat and it's dark outside. It's a good example of an and. And that type of thing is actually not uncommon. For this, let's say what we're going to do is we want a system that pushing a button turns on a light. However, if the light is on, the light will turn off. Okay? So it's basically making one input action do completely opposite output actions. Here, if I push a button, the light turns on if the light was not currently on. And then if the light is on, pushing the button causes it to turn off. That is a memory system, because it requires a memory of whether or not the light was on previous to the button press, or while the button is being pressed. Similarly, another example. I input an 8-bit word into the processor. Every time I press a button, one digit of that word comes out. Okay, so like for example, stored word could be, well, 10101000. Okay, so that would be my stored word, and every time I push a button, so first button press results in the number 1, then results in 0, then 1, then 0, etc. Okay? And then at the end it would end with 2 zeros. Okay, that's an example of something where you could be able to then read a signal based on a system that currently exists. Now, yeah, it is possible to build some of these things using logic gates, believe it or not. And I'm actually going to show you that. So the question becomes, can we build a memory system with logic gates? And the answer to that is yes, because I'm not going to pose a question that is more of a rhetorical question. Dang, I feel dumb. All right, we're going to have an input A and B. Okay? Oh, wait, no, this one just has an input of A. My bad. We just have an input of A, and A is either 0 or 1. All right? And what we have here is a NOR gate. Hey, Seth. You missed our lab. It was show up to class and don't think it's stop day. Very few people actually made it. So, let's talk it through. If A is 0, what is Q? John, you're just over there looking like you're absolutely lost. That's fair. This is a weird concept. This is why we're still in chapter 7. There's just so much to unpack. Okay? So if I put a signal of 0 into this, 0 goes into this NOT gate. Now if the output of this is 0, then this becomes 1. And if the output of this is 1, then the output of this is 0. Okay? If the output of this is 1, then the output of this is 0, and if the output of this is 0, then the output of this is 1. Yep, that's where we're at. Okay, so I'm going to call this C1, and this will be C2. Okay? So C1 is equal to C2 plus A naught, and C2 is equal to C1 naught. Bless you. I guess I could have just called this Q naught and Q, because Q is equal to C2 and Q naught is equal to C1, but whatever. Okay, so if we try to combine these in any way, like here, C2 is equal to C1 naught, which means it's equal to C2 plus A. So C2 is now equal to itself plus A. You can't actually simplify that. Because if you do, it ends up equaling 0 is equal to A, and that isn't always true, because sometimes A is equal to 1. So this is why memory systems are a little gross. Okay? It depends on the previous state of the system, or really the current state of the system. So this is an example of one of the simplest types of memory systems. Okay? It's a derivation of a memory system that looks like this. This is Q. This is Q naught. Okay, where there is no inputs to the system and we still have no idea what the output is. We would have to measure the output in order to determine which it is. Now, Q naught is always 0 if Q is 1, and Q is always 0 if Q naught is 1. Okay, that's the idea here. Q naught is the opposite of Q, and it's written as Q prime. It can also be written as Q with a line over the top of it, but I've only ever seen it as Q prime. But this is a logic system. Now let's write out a truth table. We have no inputs. None. So, but we do have an input that is an output that is also an input. Yeah.
So A is not an input?
No, in this one.
Oh.
In this one, the A is actually an input. We can write a truth table for that. I want to start with this one. Okay? Because we have to do something funky here, because an output is an input. So here, if Q is 0, well then obviously Q is 0. Q is 1, obviously Q is 1. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, why even have a truth table if the output is the input? That's fantastic. We're going to have to switch things up when it comes to our understanding of truth tables. So, first of all, okay, this is really hard to write a truth table over. There are people who have put out truth tables for it. I don't like them. Personally, I like this one better because it's hilarious. Of course, then again, I find weird things funny. Well, bad. Let's do a simple memory system that has inputs, okay? So here, we're going to have A and B as inputs. And what we'll have is, let's see. How's it given in the book? I always have to refer to the book in this one. Does anybody have their book? Seth, can I borrow your book? I'll give you lab points for showing up. I got you, bro. Okay, yeah. That's what I thought it was. So here, we're going to have this same type of system. Q naught. Our input to this one is A. Our input to this one is B. Like that. Okay? Question.
Yes.
You're welcome. That's actually the wrong answer. You'll sit in a corner. Have you even been paying attention in this class? We're going to come up with a truth table. All right? So here we have two inputs, A and B. And here we have, well, two outputs, Q naught and Q. Although Q naught is just going to be the opposite of Q always. So since we have two inputs, how many total entries to this table do we have? 4. Although I'm going to, spoiler alert, write 0, 0 twice. So we end up with 5. My bad. 4 is the right answer, but 5 is the right answer. It's the righter answer. Let's start at the bottom. What happens when A and B are both 1?
1.
Okay, this comes in as 1. The output here is Q naught. What is Q naught if A is 1? Okay. The input to this is coming in as 0. The input to this is 0. And what is B? It's 1. So if you have 1 and a 0 going into this logic gate, what's the output?
Oh, that's a no.
That's a NOR gate. So it's also 0. Okay? All right, what if A is equal to 1 and B is equal to 0? All right, so here you have a 1 that goes into this one. If you have a 1 go into this one, what is the output? It has to be a 0. So we know Q naught's going to be a 0. Okay, so this has a 0 going into this gate and a 0 going into this gate. What's the output here? It's 1. Okay, now what if we do 0, 1? Yeah.
Why don't you have to take into account the second input on the bottom?
If the input to this is 1, if either of these is 1, this is going to be 0 no matter what. So I can ignore it. If I know that one of the inputs is 1, I don't need to know the other one until later. Now it turns out it still works out, but that's just because the only way this can be on is if both are 0. Does that make sense? So I'm going to address this the other way. Here, the input is 0, 1. We have a 1 coming into this system. What's going to be the output? Q is going to be 0. Okay, so if Q is 0, we have a 0 coming in here. A is also 0. What is our output Q naught? It is 1. Okay? Now what happens when they're both 0? We have two different conditions. If this is 0, but this is 1, then this is 0. And then this is 1. Okay, so that means there's one condition where Q naught is 0 and Q is 1. But if this is 0 and this is 1, no, if this is 0 and this is also 0, then this is 1 and then this is 0. Both of those are simultaneously true.
Is this how you blow up a computer?
Well, it's the same reason why this truth table here is worthless. Both of these conditions signify one thing. If Q is equal to 0, then Q is equal to 0. If Q is equal to 1, then Q is equal to 1. That's it. That's where we get stuck right here. Why? Because the input is dependent on the output. Which is necessary in a system where a previous state is necessary for the system to operate, is that the input has to be, well, the output has to be an input to the system. Spoiler alert. Okay, so there is a better way that we can write this. I'm actually going to write at the bottom, I guess, of this truth table. So here, 0, 0. Well, the way that we write this is Q naught is equal to Q naught at n minus 1. And Q is equal to Q at n minus 1. Okay? Now, what does that mean? This means that whatever the state was prior is the state that it is now. Okay? That's all that that means. This is equal to itself just in the previous iteration. Again, this is equal to itself just equal to itself in the past. Does that make sense? So here we're replacing this 0, 0 where there's multiple possible outputs with one output that instead says this is a memory item. Be whatever you were previously. Okay? Okay, now this specific kind of flip-flop is called an SR flip-flop. Oh yeah, by the way, this is called a flip-flop. Yeah, should have led with that one. Flip-flop is a scientific electronic term. All of you thought you were wearing them on your feet. No. You were wearing them in your memory. Well, what S and R stand for is it's called a set reset flip-flop. Now the reason why it's called a flip-flop is because changing your inputs causes this to flip and flop. That's it. That's why it's called a flip-flop. A memory item is a flip-flop here. Okay? This is called a set reset flip-flop. Here, if we're only looking at Q, and Q naught is just the opposite of Q, then here, if A is positive, then we know Q naught's going to be 0. And then we know Q will be positive. And this is called a set condition. Okay, so here, this at 0, 0, when they're both off, it's just going to stay whatever it is. If we turn A on, it's going to force Q to also be on. That's called a set condition. Okay? Conversely, if B is positive and A is 0, then Q is 0. Okay, this is called the reset condition. All right, so think about it like this. Okay, Zach, you're a guinea pig today. This is yet another violent example because apparently I show up to class thinking very violent thoughts. Hyunjin sleeps and thinks about class. I sleep and think about enacting violence on students. Okay? Dang it, that ended up on YouTube. That is not true. It's a blatant fabrication. Thanks for laughing. I won't kill you now. I mean, dang it. No, it's
It's true. Because it's fun. It's an inside joke.
It is an inside joke. You see me after class. Oh, that's terrible.
From the upstairs class.
I need to delete this video pretty much when this course is over. Dang it. Have you been punched today?
I mean,
I commented on it or was watching it. There's no old good comment yet.
Yeah, not yet. After I punch you, you will be able to say you have been punched.
True.
After midnight tonight, you can no longer say you've been punched today.
Unless you punch me again.
Unless I come back and punch you in your dorm room.
Just randomly shows up.
Zach, you know why I'm here. Like, why do you have your Batman voice? I have problems. Your parents are both still alive. Doesn't matter. What? It's dark humor. Okay, so that becomes a set reset condition. The moment I punch you, I have set a true condition. The moment it reaches a new day, we have a reset condition. So it doesn't matter how many times I punch you. If I have punched you at once, in any regards, you have been punched. And then the moment the day changes, it doesn't matter how many times I punched you before. You have been punched, okay? You are no longer punched that day. Yeah.
if you punch him and kick him, you have to reset to 1, right?
I would have to try to revive him.
Like, you do two things. Like, punch him so he can say, I have
Been punched, okay.
And if you kick him, he can say, I have kicked.
Yes.
So, two things happen with him.
That would be like having two different SR flip-flops at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where here, like, it would be an ABC if Q is an input instead of an A, and then C is whether or not I used lethal force. So, yeah, it would be like that. Well, that's really dark, though. But anyways, that's kind of a grim example. Other examples that are not so grim. Zane, you had breakfast today, which means you have ate, but at some point, you're going to reset your hunger. You want to eat again, okay? That's natural. It's a natural SR flip-flop. Doesn't matter how many times you eat, you still have ate, okay? Doesn't matter. So this is the idea behind a memory system. Now we're going to do a short break, and we'll talk about a few other types of flip-flops, and I'll let you all get out of here early today, because a rare occurrence in my class.
Super rare.
In fact, I think this might be the only time I've